Reggie Sinkler from Baton Production. I want my people to show the world their best history this February. This Black History Month, let's show the world our best, and our best history is African.
We are doing this because it is necessary to revise the history of man. The tremendous anguish which is deep in the heart of all of us, which arises out of these falsehoods, the falsehoods upon which this civilization are built, have got to go.
You better get the knowledge and join the glorious struggle to maintain, stand silent. Join the people on the mission, the truth. You can't believe what they said about you. Listen to the proof. Imhotep, the African multi-genius, smartest man in history, and I mean this, wrote the first medical text in history. 2,000 years before Hippocrates, teaching the whole world all about disease, and they talk about father of medicine. Please. But the Greeks knew he was much greater because they prayed to him like a god 2,000 years later.
Remember when we were younger, we would hear some interesting tidbit about someone black who had invented something or done something significant in history, and we would wonder aloud, wow, I wonder why they don't teach us that in school. Well, I would argue some decades later that we're in no better position now with regards to our mainstream educational system and what it teaches our young people and our not so young people about our history. You know, Carter G. Woodson, the author of the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, asserts that a man receives two educations, one that is given to him and the other that he gives to himself. Well, we're about to take the long journey into looking into the historical contributions of people of African descent. Where will we begin? I mean, what have we done? What have we contributed to world civilization in the areas of mathematics, science, architecture, astrology, astronomy, medicine? If we wanted to find out, where would we begin? Well, we can begin in the most ancient of days. We could begin with an African, a multi-genius of a man. His name, Imhotep.
Imhotep, the father of medicine and a black multi-genius. The achievements of the black people of ancient Egypt have shown us that black people built truly one of the greatest civilizations of ancient times. But do you know that a person generally regarded as the most talented individual in the history of the ancient world was a black man? He was an Egyptian named Imhotep. Imhotep was the son of an architect. He lived during the reign of King Zoser of Egypt in 2980 BC. He was an exceptionally brilliant man. He was versed in medicine, architecture, engineering, philosophy, poetry, religion, and astronomy. It is through his work and writings that the Western world first learned of the existence of objective and scientific medicine based on the repeated and careful observation of a patient. It is said also that Imhotep knew about the circulation of the blood. He discovered this at least 4,000 years before it was known in Europe. Imhotep diagnosed and treated more than 200 diseases. These included disorders of the eyes, bladder, abdomen, and skin. Imhotep's contribution to the development of medical knowledge in the ancient world was such that the Greeks worshipped him as the father of medicine and their god of healing. Today, Western civilization holds to the belief that the Greek Hippocrates was the father of medicine. Yet, the Hippocratic oath taken by every medical doctor in Western civilization pays homage to the god Apollo and the father of medicine, Asclepius, which incidentally was the Greek name for Imhotep.
You better get the knowledge and join the glorious struggle to maintain, stand silent. Join the people on the mission, the truth. You can't believe what they said about you. Listen to the proof. Imhotep, the African multi-genius, smartest man in history, and I mean this, wrote the first medical text in history. 2,000 years before Hippocrates, teaching the whole world all about disease, and they talk about father of medicine. Please. But the Greeks knew he was much greater because they prayed to him like a god 2,000 years later.
But the basis, all these things they claim, you see, Hippocrates, taking sections sections out of the work of earlier Egyptian writers without giving any credit to them at all. Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem was worked out long ago. Pythagoras spent 7 years, some people say 22, in Egypt. And he comes back with all this, even medical theories, and brings it all back to Greece and all the claim. All the great European scholars went to Africa. Thales of Miletus, Democritus, Pythagoras, Eudoxus. There's a whole list of them walking into Africa, picking up things from astronomy, geometry, medicine, etc., and going back home and claiming it to be theirs. Father of this and father of that, when they're the children. Look at our day. We take our day for granted. The 24-hour day is
Africans have
African.
the accurate math skills to determine how long a second,
The
minute,
second of
hour,
time is African. The second of
Our
art is African.
365 and a quarter day calendar
Many of
is
our volumes
African.
and weights and
Tell
measures.
the world and honor the brilliance of our ancestors. This
And you look
February.
at the
Let's
year,
show the world our
365
best
and a
history,
quarter day
'cause
year.
our best history is Africa.
That was not for granted. There's no street. To get that, you'd have to have accurate mathematics. The Sumerians or Babylonians or Mesopotamians, as they call them, did not have a 365 and a quarter.
Architects, engineers, astronomers, and so forth occurs here, and you have nothing like it anywhere else in the world.
It's true. You certainly wouldn't want to determine the circumference of the Earth unless you had, of course, presupposed that the Earth was round. We want to point that out. All of the mathematics that we study today has its roots in Africa. We can start off simply with counting. The very first or the oldest known artifact in mathematics is the Shango Bone. That's over 8,000 years old. It's from the Congo. That's found in Africa. If we go ahead, they had developed fractions. Furthermore, they had developed algebra and, of course, geometry, trigonometry, and it even gone as far as the roots of integral calculus, and this is all before Europe existed.
Mathematics did not begin with the Greeks, even the Greeks say so.
Perfection. How'd they do it? High-level math, baby. If you're a student or an adult, parent, you better get to work. Stop fearing math. We invented it. That's right. I said it. I meant it. And I'm here to represent it.
Well, I'm fond of asking young black students is why are you afraid of mathematics? Why do you run away from mathematics and physics?
Now, there's one thing you have to do.
Africa
You
invented
must remember the
mathematics.
year 850 BC.
That isn't my
Because
opinion, that
that's
just
the year
happens to be the
that
reality.
Europeans
I didn't
began
make it
to
happen.
write. And I want you to compare
that
that
just
year,
happens to be the way it
850 BC,
And the Greeks
to the
themselves
dates
say
that
so, not
Africans
once, not
were
twice,
doing
but at least a dozen
trigonometry
times.
and geometry and algebra. It's
All the Greek
unbelievable.
mathematicians studied in Egypt. Eudoxus, Archimedes, Hipparchus, Pythagoras, Thales, Plato.
I'm sure you've heard of Plato. They rave about him. But they don't tell you how he felt. He wrote down in his diary he was having trouble. See, they didn't let Greeks into those schools for a long time because they weren't holy. They weren't willing to be circumcised. And after, I don't know, 500, 1,000 years maybe, they let Greeks in. People you've heard of, Plato, Aristotle, Thales, Pythagoras, Herodotus. And they wrote about it. But what Plato wrote says a lot. Check this out.
He said that, he became more alert and more human being. He became more, you see, Malone became a more human being. Not just human being, you became a more yourself. You achieve your destiny when you go to Kemet school. You became a human being, more human. We are a human being already, but more human being. That means more wise. And when you go to Kemet school, when Plato himself compared what they do in Kemet school, I give Greek because it will be no debate. You see, it's our school in Greece, the way we are doing things is just for creatures like pigs. You see, like pigs. You see, and he said, myself, I'm ashamed. Myself as a Plato, I'm ashamed. We do things like that, is a shame. And also, not only for myself, for all Greek, the Greek world is a shame what we can do. Our education, when you compare with a Kemet, is not even for human beings, it's just for pigs, for animals.
This is problem number 56, also from the Rin Mathematical Papyrus. This is a problem that allows them to demonstrate how to find the slope of the pyramid. And in this problem, they actually deal with cotangents, showing that they had also not only begun their studies in geometry, but also in trigonometry as well.
Remember that year 850 BC?
Among these ancient people of the Nile, these ancient black peoples of the Nile, we find the first evidence of algebra, because in the Rin Mathematical Papyrus, number 24 to 27, are algebraic equations of the first degree. They also handled algebraic equations of the second degree. Algebra is basically, if you have to strip it down to its essentials, its ability to solve problems when you have an unknown. Now, we call that unknown usually X or Y. The ancient Camites used to call it a quantity. Certainly the grandest edifice of its kind ever created by the hand of man. Just want to say
You're looking at the Great Pyramid, the most fantastic, incredible, sophisticated building ever built by man.
483 feet in height. The base of the pyramid is 13 acres in area. It was built out of 2.8 million, 2.7 million blocks of stone. The lightest stone was 1 ton. The heaviest was 7 tons. Planes
History is so untold, yet so unbelievably
that when
great.
they were fitted together,
If we
you
don't
cut
show
the
it to
hair
the
on your
world,
head, you could not fit it
just
to
ask
the joint.
yourself.
Oriented
Black people
precisely
get
to
more
4
respect
cardinal
than the whole
points.
world knew.
The descending passage was built at 3 degrees 43 minutes in slope, oriented exactly to Alpha Draconis, which shone down at 3340 BC, 3340 BC, and it won't shine it down again until 26,000 years later. The height of the pyramid, if you multiply it by 1 billion, gives you the mean distance between Earth and Sun. People say that's a coincidence. Well, the height of the pyramid, if you multiply it by 1 billion, gives you the mean distance between Earth and Sun. People say that's a coincidence. Well,
They think it's a coincidence because they can't believe it. Oh, come on, Sprinkler, that can't possibly be true. Stop that. How could the Africans know the distance? Stop that. Most of the prejudice, racism, and discrimination against black people is based on ignorance. And when you learn your history, then you know. And you could say, oh, poor guy, he doesn't know. He doesn't realize that what we gave his people and the world. My job, I feel, what I vowed to the ancestors inside of a temple in Nubia was to teach the world the truth about history. Who did what, especially us. So important was learning to the African heathen considered ignorance to be a sin. That's why long before any other nation, Africans invented organized university education, where every subject had to be studied and debated. Total mind and body control had to be demonstrated. And after 40 long years, yeah, you'd be elated because you graduated.
A priest. Now, what is a priest? You read the thing, you don't know what it is, you didn't ask them any questions. A priest was a man who went into the system of education, which you call the mystery system, from age 7, at the time when he was circumcised and brought in. At age 47, 40 years of training,
That's right.
studying the seven liberal arts,
continuously from age 7 to age 47, graduated from African school.
and he
Couldn't
had
even go home.
qualified in
No
each
good
of
ever
his
graduated.
degrees. He
Shouldn't we
became
talk
known
about this
as a
during Black
priest.
History Month? Of course.
So that means that you who spend 4 years for your bachelor's, 2 years for your master's, and another 2 or 1 depending for your doctorate, you would have just begun to study. And you're talking about a long time of study. You would have been there 40 years without ever going to see your parents or anyone else.
The Egyptians were the first, according to Herodotus, to have specialists for every organ. They were the first to have pharmacies because they found standardized doses. They were the first to have a state medicine. Their doctors were paid by the state. And we have found 10 medical texts, in spite of massive destruction, 10 medical texts survive. The Ebers Papyrus and the Edwin Smith Papyrus, 1500 BC, 2600 BC.
During the 1700s and 1800s, information
earliest
such as this was prohibited from publication in the United States.
The Book
Even Thomas
of the
Jefferson
Dead, or
knew
rather it should be called the Book of the Coming Forth by Night and Day. The Pyramid Texts, the Papyrus of Ani. You will hear tomorrow from Dr. Ben the profound impact of those books upon the thinking of the Greeks. Look at the medical literature of the world. They said the clinical method began with the Greeks. It did not. You can read the Edwin Smith Papyrus. Dr. Finch, whom you will hear tomorrow. Dr. Finch has done a commentary recently for the journal on the Edwin Smith Papyrus, showing it is only 1/3 of an earlier manuscript written down in the 18th dynasty by a surgeon in Egypt.
BCE. Remember 850?
And that it only deals with the head and neck and the brain. Yet there are 200 terms.
The brain. Look it up.
There are
Take it to
200
school.
medical terms for
Brag
things
about what
inside and
Africans
outside the head.
Let's celebrate our best. You just heard Dr. Ivan Van Sertima telling us about Africans having knowledge about the parts of the brain before Europe was born. Shouldn't we celebrate this genius in February and tell the world about the intellectual gains Africans had made with no help from anybody? Let's shock the world and hit them with documented proof of African achievements no other people can match. Intellectual achievements we were prevented from knowing, and so was the entire world, prevented from knowing awesome African history like this.
This was found in Saqqara, dated to 300 BC, and at first was said to be a bird, until a NASA engineer said, next slide please, birds do not have reverse dihedral wings and vertical tails. So this is a glider and an aerodynamically sound glider. Not an airplane, but it just shows you that in African science they had already started experimenting with aerodynamics 300 years before Jesus was born. So again, why are we afraid to be engineers? Next slide, please.
The incredible unknown deeds of our ancestors should be highlighted this February. And please don't forget to show the world the awesome proof. This is a Cairo Museum display that I photographed myself. This is African aerodynamics in 300 BC, 300 years before Jesus. We have to show the world. Now, is this awesome or what? Let's see. Aerodynamic gliders in 300 BC. Algebra, geometry, and trigonometry by 1600 BC. Written down in the first math text in history. Oh yeah, they invented paper. The first physician and multi-genius named Imhotep, who wrote the first medical text in history, performed surgery. Africans had made all of these medical advances by 2600 BC. And Greece and Rome didn't begin until 1800 years later in 1000 BC. Let's show the world the longest and most glorious part of our history this February. The 2,000 years before the birth of Europe, when Africans created time, the calendar, algebra, geometry, and trigonometry, writing, paper, math, and medical text, surgery, anatomy, the first doctors in the world, and so much more. This February, let's celebrate the untold African and American accomplishments and honor our ancestors properly. Our best history is African. Let's show them our best. So you see why I gotta keep my vow somehow and find a way to help my people shed their shame, regain their claim to fame, and once again walk with your head
This February and all year through, let's show the world our best. Reggie Sinclair. Hotel.
I came to bring the truth and bring the proof, teaching everybody every house floor to the roof. I came to bring the truth and bring the proof, teaching everybody every house floor to the roof. You better kick that Negro out. Put back your African. Put back your African. The only way you're gonna understand. You gotta kick that Negro out. Kick that Negro out. Back to African. Please, listen to me, black man. First man and woman on the planet. Don't blame me for the way God planned it. Some of y'all lied and you can't stand it, cause this is some powerful shit, goddamn. I was in a temple in Nubia. I made a vow to the ancestors to bring the truth to you. The one thing they asked me to do is tell you, you think you shaming them, they more shame you, cause you swallowed every lie your master spoke. Some of y'all still choking on this okie doke. No knowledge of the Africanness within. You don't care who you are or where you been. You don't care, you don't know your real name, and if you knew it, you wouldn't use it cause you're too damn ashamed. Why you think Master told you not to read? He knew there was something in that book you might see. You better get the knowledge and join the glorious struggle to maintain and stand silent. Join the people on a mission of truth. You can't believe what they said about you. Listen to the proof. Imhotep, the African multi-genius, smartest man in history, and I mean this, wrote the first medical text in history. 2,000 years before Hippocrates, teaching the whole world all about disease, and they talk about father of medicine. Please. But the Greeks knew he was much greater because they prayed to him like a god 2,000 years later. We were the first people to pray to God, taught the world about heaven, how getting there was hard. Not only about heaven, but moral living. We were the first to mention how to live again. So important was learning to the African they even considered ignorance to be a sin. That's why long before any other nation, Africans invented organized university education, where every subject had to be studied and debated. Total mind and body control had to be demonstrated. And after 40 long years, yeah, you'd be elated because you graduated. So if you're out there and you've been born in this land and think you ain't African, here's a little lesson in the form of a question. And the answer should give you a mental suggestion. Now listen careful, I don't want nobody to miss it. If my cat has a baby in the oven, would you call that baby a kitten or a goddamn biscuit? Better kick that Negro out. Put back your African. Gotta kick that Negro out. Put back your African. You hear me clearly, black man? So you see why I gotta keep my vow somehow and find a way to help my people shed their shame, regain their claim to fame, and once again walk with their heads held high in the sun, proud of all they've done. Put back your Want to get that power? The power's in the knowledge, but it only comes to you when you know what your ancestors did, because only then do you know what you can.